Don't have any drugs or anything illegal on you that I should know about?
No, sir, no.
Okay, you don't have any drugs or illegal firearms or anything in the vehicle? All right, would you mind if I take a look?
Yes, I would.
If I can just have you sit on the curb right over there.
You don't get to search me, bud.
Why is that?
Because you have no reason to search me.
Well, there was a guy actually who fit your description, dressed in a clown costume, that was planting drugs on people out here in Rockwall. You know, when I see someone like yourself dressed in the same costume, you know, I figure, I don't know if it's some type of organized gang that's going around doing it, but when you're wearing the same costume, you know, it's pretty suspicious. Right. And, you know, if there's nothing to hide, I don't see why there would be a problem with me just checking it out. And that way, you know, me, the public, everyone has peace of mind.
Yeah, damn right. You tell him. He definitely didn't like that one. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Radowski here of the best politicalshow.com. As of course, we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours with some really interesting guests here talking about a whole wide range of issues that are just a teeny-bit controversial, as of course we're going to be getting into the Nephilim, the interdimensional species, and also into all just the latest developments politically here inside of the United States as the Biden administration looks like it is in trouble, to say the least. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more for the next 2 hours. So make sure that you guys share this broadcast with your friends and family members, because this is definitely not going to be a forgettable podcast. You could also participate and be a part of the conversation by going to mysuperchat.com. It's our website where there's only a 3% service charge for super chats that actually show up on the screen. Any Rumble rants, any super chats will of course be read, and you will also get the ability to call into the show if you are a member of LukeUnfiltered.com. As of course, when we transition over to Rumble, we take callers from members. Members get an access link to Telegram. That Telegram channel is where we all talk to each other during the show. And then at the end, we, of course, will be taking random callers where you guys get to ask us whatever you want. Show us whatever you want. It's Rumble. We could do whatever we want. On YouTube, we have a little bit more of, let's just say, technocratic digital gulag restrictions that aren't always as fun to deal with. And hopefully our guests today don't get us in too much hot water. Those guests are, of course, Top Lobster and Raven. Top Lobster and Raven, for the people who don't know you, how would you guys introduce yourselves? Who are you?
Go ahead. You know what? Yeah, so I'm Top Lobster. I guess I'm a graphic designer by trade. I am 1/5 of the co-host of Tower Gang podcast.
Yo.
Yeah, that's Tower Gang. Shout out. What's up? And we're going to have a lot of decorum today. We're not going to get you in trouble. We're going to have a good show. I'm going to let Raven introduce himself, but I already kind of did. And I want to talk about this video that you just played because I feel like you're already setting us up to go crazy. You played this video.
I don't even think he knows what he's
he
touching on.
He doesn't even know.
He doesn't know what he's touching on there.
David peeked at me, and I was like, oh.
We did. We made eye contact.
I was like, here we go.
I'm David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven, host of the Ravens Watch podcast and one half of the NDS. We'll call it NDS for now. You guys can learn the name of the show in the Rumble section.
If you hang out for an hour, we'll tell you what we're really called.
Yeah, but the shows are all conspiratorial, all paranormal, all occultism, supernatural, hidden history, things of that nature. So
no, this is going to be a great conversation because there's a lot of things that are kind of deep down the rabbit hole, kind of in the weeds, that we're going to be extrapolating as much as we can. And Clint, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard he's Top Lobster. I heard you're Bottom Lobster. Is that true?
No, actually, I'm king of the Nephilim.
He's descendant of the Nephilim.
We have suspicions that he actually might be a Nephilim. Take the hat off, Clint, because his head's kind of enlarged.
And he's got peculiar scars on the outside of his hands where his sixth finger used to be.
He may or may not be a Nephilim. But we still like him. We love Clint. That's why I keep letting him come on my show, Tower Gang.
Oh, it's your show now.
I took it over.
One can't handle or control the circumstances of their birth, and so under that, it's not his fault. That
so you have a Martin Luther King outlook when it comes to the Nephilim.
We're here to content of your character. That's what I'm.
We're here to preach. So our show NDS, we do dabble in all this stuff, but in the end, we kind of look at it through a Christian lens. So we are preaching the message of Christ. There's still hope for you, Clint.
That is,
even though you were born as
redemption
Trump
is
would
within
say,
reach.
He was born messed up.
If I was born Nephilim, how could there be hope for me?
There is. There's
We'll
hope
work
for everybody.
it out.
Through the power of Christ, sir. Good sir. Through the power of Christ.
But Luke, so you played this video, and it's like a guy, and he's talking to a cop, and the cop's like, "You're dressed as a clown," and it's suspicious. So right away, I look at Dave, and I'm like, "Oh, we're jumping right into it." So in the second hour, we'll tell you what it's called. It's Nephilim stuff, but we've actually spoken to this guy Paul from U Conspiracy, and in his biblical research, he has a theory that the Nephilim were actually
like modern day, or the clown is the modern day visage of the Nephilim. So it's a little bit distorted and cartoonized, but through a bunch of like various details through the research, extensive research. Paul of Understanding Conspiracy, extensive research. He's laid out a very compelling body of evidence that suggests that the modern day clown is actually an homage to the Nephilim. And so you should definitely go check out his work there because it's very,
I love it. We're connecting the dots already. Awesome job. Steph, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're doing a button push in there. Let's get off that phone. I don't know, Steph, what you're doing on there, but you got to introduce yourself too.
Yeah, well, let me get a mic. Mic check. Hi, I'm Steph. We are Change.
What are you doing behind that phone that we don't get the accurate button push in
She's
here?
Googling the Nephilim look like clowns.
Yeah, she's like, these guys are full of it. They definitely didn't look like clowns.
All right, let's get into it. As of course, there's a little bit of a normal kind of political news that I think would be worth talking about, that I think is a little bit interesting before going into the kind of Tucker Carlson, Nephilim, deeper down the rabbit hole spiritual stuff. I want to talk about a little bit of the superficial stuff, as of course we have this article here from the Daily Mail that is describing how Joe Biden is ending the year with the worst approval numbers of any modern day president. Quote, he enters the election year with lower popularity than Jimmy Carter and faces an enormous mountain to climb. If he's climbing downwards from that mountain, he probably will fall. If he's going upwards, he will probably fall too. And this man, I think politically is done. I do not see a way where he could still win re-election. Who knows? The system's crazy. The system's outrageous. They set up and manipulate so many different things on the world stage, but his kind of old age and even fellow Democrats kind of attacking him is kind of setting the stage for what really looks like a very tumultuous 2024, or even a scenario where elections might not even happen. This is something that I talked about way before kind of anyone else did, before Roseanne Barr, before Colonel McGregor. I came out and I was like, hey, all the writings are here on the wall. It kind of does look like we're going into an election cycle with no election. What do you guys think? What's your perspective on Biden? Will they replace him? Will there be an election? What do you guys think?
You know, when I see this happening, I can't help but
if you can bring up the microphone a little bit closer to you.
I can't help but feel like this is, you alluded to these things happening on the world stage, all these different strings being pulled. And when I look at Biden and the state of the country and the state of his presidency, it feels like you couldn't ask for a more monumental layup for Donald Trump to come in and really just be received with arms wide open when it comes to, like I said, the conditions of how things are now, the way that he's being, persecuted unfairly in so many different ways. And I just think that in my opinion, the guy that is in the skin suit that is Joe Biden, these are purposeful fumbles. I look at this, I don't really believe, and I know this is a political show, but I don't believe in my heart of hearts that things that happen on the highest level on the world stage are anything short of orchestrated. And so even when it comes to the monumental fall of Joe Biden, I look at that and I go, this is beautiful theater.
Well, I do think that he is completely crumbling as a human being, but I also do think that it's set in front of our eyes that way. Like, if you wanted to replicate the riots of 2020, you do what you're doing now. You have somebody that's like the most unpopular president among both parties, completely crumbling, probably pooping himself in office in front of the Pope and falling up and down stairs and yada yada. It's hilarious. If I didn't have to live through it, it's great comedy. But unfortunately, I'm raising kids to it. And then on top of that, like what you guys have been hammering the last 2 days, you say, well, guess what? Trump can't run. We're going to take him off the ballot in Colorado. And then who knows how this will snowball. I know that they're looking into this in California, which they'll probably do. And if he loses his court case with Colorado, that's like an open door for other states that don't like him to just completely shut that door. So now you've set the stage for Americans who are angry for years, which is why, I mean, look, I'm looking at Clint right now. He's looking at me. The only reason he does his show is because he's furious. He would have just been making money and being baller skank in California still if you did not disturb his sleep. But you've woken him up. And
You woke the sleeping Nephilim.
Sleeping Nephilim giant. That's how
yeah,
that goes.
and that's kind of like what's happening. It feels like we're being set up for more like disruption. And obviously, I don't want to be like, Tim, a civil war, But like, hey,
But how could you not, right? They're rolling out propaganda piece after propaganda
Yeah.
piece, alluding to this,
I
setting
like
this
to.
up.
We like to joke like drink every time he says civil war, but it's like, oh man, it's like now it's starting to
Die
look.
of
Yeah, he's
like
not
liver
wrong.
disease.
A lot of people say he's hyperbolic. I don't think he is, because he's reading the room. He's saying, hey, everything that is adding to a division in our social political discourse is being added to this larger frickin' recipe of disaster. And there's no other way to kind of look at it and see it other than organized, planned chaos for the people of America. And I think that's the larger play here. So much chaos, so much disorganization that people beg the government to come in and take more power away from them, intervene, and of course become more of a central authoritarian figure in their life. I think that's always been the plan. There's always many different factors to how they carry out this plan. What do you think the larger play is here? Because people are saying a war, economic crash, another disease that they're going to release on the world. I think personally, myself, if we're looking at the scenarios here, I think the financial numbers don't kind of add up for a crash, because then everyone's going to be blaming Bidenomics and the Build Back Better policy. As far as the kind of sickness thing, I think they're saving that one for if Donald Trump actually does get elected, because then when he does, they'll just release it, and then Donald Trump will do what he did kind of last time, since he hasn't really talked about making any mistakes the first time around and hasn't really held himself accountable. I really do think foreign policy is going to be more of something to really keep an eye out for, as the situation in the Middle East is very troublesome. The situation in Ukraine is also extremely troublesome, especially when it comes to even the latest report coming in right now of essentially Ukrainian refugees being called back from the ages of 25 to 60, saying, yeah, we need you guys here for military service. We don't care where you are. Come back to Ukraine right now. Volodymyr Zelensky needs his paycheck, and the military-industrial complex wants their sacrifice to Moloch. That's not exactly what they said here. That's a little bit of an extrapolation here, but that's just some of my thinking when it comes to understanding the larger chaos ahead of us, foreign policy being the biggest issue in my own perspective. What do you guys think? Where do you guys see the bigger problems ahead of us?
Don't sell yourself short here, because I know like conspiracy, because I could tell, I could see the tinfoil hat just gleaming off your head. Conspiracy theorists we have to paint around the edges to people who don't quite understand like what we know intimately, or at least what we think we know intimately. And you're saying to sacrifice to Moloch, and that a lot of people will laugh that off. But then there's Hillary Clinton emails saying like, we're looking for the tomb of Gilgamesh and the bodies of the buried Nephilim. And you're like, okay, what's that mean? I mean, unless it's more, I don't know, pizza related stuff, what does that mean? So if I threw that to Clint, how would you describe that? Because
I'd be very interested in knowing that.
I have no idea. Tell me what it means. I mean, why would Hillary be saying that? It's bizarre.
So if I had to give my take on that, what I would say is that we have a smokescreen when it comes to the world events, right? So take the war in Iraq, or just in the Middle East in general. It's like, well, this was really about oil
and
right?
poppy fields.
And poppy fields. Like, it's a resource-driven thing. We want to control these resources. And you go, okay, well, maybe. And you go a little bit further, and it's like, well, actually, it's about setting up a permanent military presence in all these various places in the world, right?
That
it's like,
too.
well, maybe, yeah, that too, right? But then you have Hillary Clinton looking for the body of Gilgamesh, the bodies of the buried Nephilim. She's got emails from her to John Podesta saying something about sacrificing a chicken to Moloch. And so what I believe, when you pile these things in, with a much larger body of evidence, it's not just that happening in a vacuum that makes me think this, but this is about something much more ancient, that the things that are important to the people who are pulling the strings on the world stage are not very much financial as much as they are ancient and biblical in nature.
Yeah.
And that's also something that we are not taught about in schools. These are things that like you think that we should know about. If the big percentage of the population of this like 1% are looking into things that no one else has any idea about, that's what's begging the question. That's like people are always asking, like, why are they doing this? What is their incentive? What is the agenda? Well, if no one really knows then it makes it, that's why we're all like kind of piecing together these puzzle pieces, wonder what is the Nephilim, what's Gilgamesh? I have to read about this story from ancient times. No one told me about this.
Yeah, and I bring this point up a lot of the times, especially when I'm on Timcast, because sometimes the guests are like, they're doing this for money. All they want is money.
I wish
and
they
I'm
were.
like, that's superficial level stuff here, as there's a deeper spiritual, energetic component to a lot of this that I think they're essentially channeling what a lot of very horrible world leaders throughout recorded human history have been channeling themselves, and that is the utter conquest and enslavement of all of humanity. And when you start to kind of look at it from that kind of larger spiritual, energetic, demonic possession kind of perspective, it does line up, and it does give you a better explanation than just greed and the kind of weaknesses in humankind. So that's just kind of my perspective. We're already going into the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be on the superficial stuff. Hold your horses there. Hold your horses there.
I'll give you. Here's the superficial take on that. So if you wanted to have Bill Gates' agenda, which he's been doing like in India, and then they were doing throughout 2020. I'm looking at the paper here. A civil war is a great way to do that if you're trying to maybe cull a population, which is that they are outspoken about that. That was conspiracy a couple of years ago, and now it's like pretty much like, no, we know.
They lead with depopulation, right?
Yeah, they tell you. They live stream it. It's insane.
And so you can't just have one angle at that. That's a massive undertaking, depopulation, right? And so you would have to deploy several different angles to achieve that goal. And this is just one of them.
Look at the numbers of the American Civil War and what the population was versus how many people lost, and it's staggering. Like you were just talking about Ukraine. I think the average age for the Ukrainian soldier is like 40 or something like that. The last time I read, which is crazy. That means there's an entire population of young men lost. What happens to that country?
They're going to import immigrants, and they're going to, as Zelensky said, just implement the Build Back Better Great Reset policy. Goldman Sachs and BlackRock and State Street already have contracts inside of that country, and he has pledged, hey, Ukraine's going to be open for the world. Come on in, globalists, come on in. New populations of the world from Africa and the Middle East, they're going to replace the local populations there, which
sounds familiar.
Yeah, which is
they've done
their plan that they do everywhere.
They've done a masterful job too of creating this culture where you can't be racist, you can't be a bigot, you can't say. This is why when I don't know what he's told you about Tower Gang, but we touch all these lines. We touched on that taboo stuff on purpose because it's a direct refutation of what the culture is telling people to do. So like if they're saying diversity is our strength, but in order to get diversity, we have to get rid of like the working age man, the one that's going to be in his prime, to create a new generation to be fathers for whether it be Ukrainian or white, Hispanic, whatever it may be. That's quite disturbing. And we have to battle that any way we can.
Yeah, we have a super chat here from the redheaded libertarian saying the Tower Gang is the most offensive podcast.
That's what I heard.
That's definitely a compliment now in our modern day internet age. Clint, you had something to say.
Well, no, Tim Pool said that Tower Gang is the most offensive
He
podcast.
He didn't really. We like.
we may have gamed it. We may have taken it out of context. But regardless, he did say those words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, going all the way back, because I haven't talked about any of these topics yet, I think that Joe Biden's approval ratings being at record lows for any president entering the end of his third year, it's not surprising. Every time I see those polls, I'm stunned that they're not lower. I don't understand how anybody looks at that dude and says, great job. Killing it, Joe. You're right on point. It's mind blowing to me that he still has 30% of America that says this is my guy. This is my guy.
It's a spiritual. Again, I feel like we keep jumping the gun. It's a spiritual thing because you talk to people that you know your whole life, right? And family members, and I'll be like, look at this guy. He just fell down the stairs. He's like, they're saying you take your seat. Like no clue what's going on. Weekend at Bernie stuff, and they'll still be like, he's still better than Trump. And I'm just like, I don't really like Trump, but there's really not a comparison here, guys.
It could be one of those things too, where it's like, what percentage of the population, if 30% are still saying that's my guy, what percentage of that 30% are having a different angle? Like every time he sniffs a kid, what percentage of those people are going, That's my guy, right?
That's actually more
That's
nefarious.
my
than I was
guy
thinking.
right there. Like that's a whole different subsect of that. So who knows what various things are at play here? But
Well, they don't have much to kind of go on. And if you look at this Daily Mail article, they talk about how, quote, there is growing confidence that the economy is improving. For who? BlackRock, State Street. Everyone else is just financially bamboozled, financially screwed over, especially with the open immigration policies that lower the cost of labor, that increase the cost of housing, and make life difficult for a lot of people, including the poorest people whose resources are being stripped away and given to the new kind of Democratic voting base out there. So you could see Biden just trying to figure this out any way he can. And I think this latest bill that he's trying to push through, and his latest announcement that he said that he's going to be pardoning Americans who have used marijuana, is a larger play on just trying to win back the American people. But there's a lot of nuance here that needs to be understood here, as of course, when it comes to pardoning Americans who used marijuana, there's not a lot of Americans in jail for marijuana federally. And federally, if you look at the larger kind of ramifications of what's going on here, this is going to be affecting not a lot of individuals. Some people say about a dozen people might be affected by this larger pardon. Now, I do believe decriminalization is a step in the right direction, but I also do believe that there's a sinister social agenda to try to get people off of nicotine and onto marijuana that essentially makes them good soy boys. That's just the way that I would personally describe it.
Very
Is that shots
interesting.
fired against
I think
some of the
that's-
people here?
I think
No.
that's valid, man. I think
Listen,
that's entirely valid.
Yeah, I'm not like a pro or against, but that is actually a very good point. So on our show, we had on a licensed psychotherapist, and he's 35 years in the field, this guy named Jerry Marzinski, and he spoke with us about the prevalence of schizophrenia, the use of drugs, and I mean specifically meth, but he did mention just like the use of drugs, and he surmises that schizophrenia, which means like split mind, is more like actually so like you're a receiver and you're actually you're picking up voices from somewhere.
Yeah. This
So-
is an outside influence.
Yeah, it's an outside influence. So yeah, if you kind of wanted to continue the downfall of America into this insane asylum, as we close insane asylums and just put them in jail, which exacerbates the problem, then you'd flood it with not just fentanyl, but I mean, he's like, we're at the lower level stuff. He's like, just do the weed too, right? Like whatever,
Right.
just put everything on them,
Well,
entirely normalizing
This all plays into the progressive DA agenda, which Soros has been pushing forever, that they want to have more and more really violent offenders. They framed it in the libertarian framework of we're going to have nonviolent drug offenders be released, but what it ended up being was a whole bunch of very, very violent people. And I think that the timing of this is odd, just simply because we're awash in such a terrible homelessness crisis and drug addiction. It's like, all right, so now you're going to release how many people? I mean, in this case, I guess it's only going to be a 12. But I mean, that you have heard stories about in California, for instance, when I was leaving, there was all of these quote unquote nonviolent drug offenders that were being released, and it turned out many of them ended up being recidivists, and they were not nonviolent drug offenders at all. So I think that people need to be aware that even if they're framing it in some sort of progressive fashion, that this is about releasing nonviolent folks, oftentimes it's not so much.
And even if that was, I mean, that's the most nefarious end, the things that we just discussed here. But on the lower end, it's just pandering.
Yeah.
Right. It's the administration is dying on the vine, and they're just throwing disgusting things at you to try to recoup some sort of face, some sort of public
Isn't
face.
it like Biden and Obama kind of saying like, marriage is between a man and a woman, and then all of a sudden it's like when it's popular, like actually here's put rainbow flags all on the White House.
Keep in mind, Joe Biden's responsible for the war on drugs to a large extent. Yeah. Like he's like one of the loudest spokesmen about locking people up and jungles and all sorts of racist stuff too.
Kamala too, right?
Yeah,
They were directly involved with
she
that.
was the DA in California.
This is one of the shirts that I specifically made. We could pull this up on screen. When Joe Biden was initially running with Kamala Harris, was a shirt that said "Rich White Guy and Cop 2024," and that's the Democrat. The shirt's still available on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. But that's the progressive dream team. That's the left woke ideology that essentially is being pushed forward through these individuals that put people in jail for nonviolent drug offenses more than I think any other human being on the face of this frickin' world. That's ridiculous, and that hypocrisy needs to be called out.
Well, don't feel bad because they're going to replace Biden with Gavin Newsom, which I want your analysis on Gavin Newsom, because when I see him, I'm not, as you guys know, I'm not in the spiritual realm stuff, biblical prophecy. But when I see
a lizard person,
when I
right?
see Gavin Newsom, I'm like, that's not a real person.
Yeah, you see the darkness behind the eyes. The eyes say everything about a human being. Michael Malice has a different take. He thinks Gavin's going to be VP, and he came out recently and said they're going to bring back Hillary, and it's going to be a Hillary Newsom ticket. But Clint just threw the question at you guys. What do you guys think?
It's a nightmare, dude.
Yeah.
He's going to actually be working directly under Moloch. Amazing.
For Mauler.
He's got that. What's that? American Psycho. He's got those vibes. A lot of those vibes. American Psycho vibes. I think he is like, you know, I don't think too much
not
about
in a cool
him.
way.
Yeah, not in a cool way. No, not in a based way. I see him. I honestly don't see things going his way. So when Michael Malice says that he expects him to be VP, I don't see that coming. I think that we're in the middle of a much larger redemption arc for Trump. And I think that when people have this ideology that story has to be finished, I subscribe to that. I mean, anything can happen. I've obviously been wrong a lot, you know, if you're trying to make
The hero's journey, you know?
Yes, it's the hero's journey, exactly. You've never seen a man more openly, obviously, wrongly persecuted.
Wronged.
And I think what happens is if we see the tides turn for him and you see a lot of vindication in the way of his political enemies and this Russiagate and all these different things coming to light and being definitively debunked, and then some. You know, if he's got vindication in other ways, that there's stuff we can't talk about right now until Rumble, but we could see a real big swing for him. So when it comes to Newsom, I don't think much about him except for he is, in fact, slimy and scaly. Like, definitionally slimy and scaly. That man does look like he's wearing what a reptilian would think a human suit looks like. Like, that's the face he's putting on.
Yeah, down to the hair. But he was... David's flirting with the idea of maybe we can come back to this. Please remind us that if things do move in this way and Trump is now vindicated and like a lot of the population that had TDS says, oh wow, this guy actually wasn't so bad. As a matter of fact, I like what he did. Now he has the popularity and the support of like 80% of the country. That is very dangerous. Very dangerous. Biblically, very dangerous. Like,
any man with that much power.
yes, but like Antichrist vibes, very, very dangerous.
So stick around for Rumble.
Well,
Yes.
see, I don't think that there's any chance that he's actually vindicated. Like you were saying, what if he's proven that, or it's thoroughly debunked? It has been years ago. All this Russia collusion stuff, it's all been debunked years ago. It doesn't matter because the corporate narrative that still half this country abides by is he is a criminal of the highest order, racist, biggest.
That's what I
sexist, all
mean,
that.
though. If he's
So you're saying the media could rehabilitate him?
yeah, they do whatever they want. They say
yeah.
one thing today and the next thing tomorrow, and people believe it. They lap it up. So if
that shifts in 2024 and they start to rehabilitate his image, I will eat my hat. That'll be amazing to watch. But
very dangerous. Think about how dangerous.
I thought you meant how dangerous it is to eat a hat. I was like, dude, be careful. Don't promise us that, bro.
Don't eat that
You
hat.
can't digest that thing.
But Luke knows whenever we have bipartisan support in government, it's always something completely awful. So that is something I'm watching closely because he's being painted in almost like he's being painted in a corner in the most comical way, where he's the only front runner, in my opinion, for presidency out of both parties, and what they're doing to him now is just like, I'm like, guys, everybody knows that this is not going to work out.
I mean,
in
taking
some
him
form or
off the
fashion.
ballot is monumental, right? As far as historical events go, this is like something that's going to go down.
last time it happened was Abraham Lincoln before the Civil War.
So, I mean, you have a couple of series of events like that pile up. We don't know because we would have never guessed that he was going to be pulled off the ballot, say, 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So we're in a time right now where things are changing and moving so rapidly that your guess is as good as mine. What's going to come down the pipe? And all we need is a couple of more events like that are overt wrongful persecutions, and we could see something very different change about his public persona, especially if the people who have been propping up the media and pulling the strings behind the scenes, if something happens on that side where they're exposed in the largest way and the way the media tends to flip-flop, they're almost a parasite, right? They're just trying to stay alive. So they'll go wherever the story leads, wherever the money is. So if the money shifts and it goes that way.
I just don't see how the money shifts, though, because their entire power structure is predicated on suppressing not just Trump, but most importantly, his populist supporter base. And if they actually give that dude power, and he has carte blanche to do what he wants, I think that it could be havoc for them. Like for instance, they were talking about releasing the Epstein associates
Right.
a couple days ago. But you know what?
I don't think that's gonna
You know what the truth is though? It's people that actually worked for him. It's
Right.
Epstein. It's like associates in that way. It's not the client list.
Correct. You'll see a
And,
bullshit
like,
version of it.
Yeah, and like, what do we care about? We care about the client list.
Exactly.
The people that were working with them. Sure, that's important too. But we want to know what politicians had compromise on them, so we could actually evaluate. Okay, who is owned and why are they functioning this way? That's the stuff that we'll never get. I don't even know how I got in this.
The way that I
but-
see this could shift is with the success of things like Rumble, with the success of things like X, it may paint the legacy media in such a corner that they will attempt to maybe tell the truth in order to recoup. And we could see something like that where the pressure's mounting because of the success of these other platforms and sort of the dying, gasps of an industry that's collapsing in on itself. They might have kind of a Hail Mary. And so who knows, maybe on the way out, CNN will be like, it was Bill Clinton. You know what I mean? And then they fall off the cliff. We could see something like that.
Well, you see, like
I doubt it, but
places like Netflix are already doing this in like the comedy realm. They tried their Hannah Gadsby stuff, and they're like, this is garbage. People really don't like it, and we tried to really sell it to you. So now they're like, all right, well, let's get a guy like a Matt Rife on here or something like that, and like Sam Tripoli will say over and over again, it's safe, dangerous, but it's just dangerous enough where people will be like, yeah, this is the real stuff, but it's like it's not. We're giving you just the taste of it, so that like that's about as far as you can go. You know what I mean? Like a controlled opposition sort of
I remember when the Hannah Gadsby special came out, right in the teeth of lockdowns, and I was like, they're trying to push me over the edge.
Yeah, they're radicalizing you.
Well, doesn't it feel like they're doing that again? They're pushing everybody over the edge in a different way.
Every day for 3 years straight, they
I'm
have
telling
been
you.
pushing people.
So, not to get too inside baseball, but Top and I have been experiencing a lot of rapid success. I think it's because people are exhausted with the narrative and they're looking for alternative sources. And they've always been looking for alternative sources, but our timing and the nature of the climate right now is what's lending itself to that success. I think even just the attention of the people could change this, where everybody just shucks off this. You said there's 30%, right? Whatever 15% of them, they just like when dudes smell kids. There's another 15% that might be savable. And that's a monumental tide that turns. You know what I'm saying? It's only a 15% approval of child sniffers that still love them, and then the rest is all on the other side. And that's the kind of thing, a cultural shift. And I think we're in the middle of that.
I agree with that. We're in the middle of a cultural shift. Top and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Is that like the canceled are now the mainstream? Even you just saw that Spaces a couple weeks ago that had Andrew Tate and AJ and all these other characters that had been blacklisted.
Insane.
Essentially, and now they're all in one space together having a conversation about what, like, the spiritual war, the things that we're going to talk about in the second hour. It's just mind blowing, the shift that's happened and how rapidly it's happened. And the corporate narrative once again is, well, Elon is allowing some sort of radical faction to, the band's back together. But from our vantage point, it's just like, these are like the moderates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
These are the moderates that we kind of laugh about. So the fact that they're back, though, is very healthy. I think you've seen already that AJ, for instance, the impact that his work is having. I see it on X every day. It's like more clips of him are circulating and everything else. It's like, all right, well, then the Overton window is really shifting, and it only took one platform to do so. So
Yeah.
I think we can win pretty rapidly.
But there's also a lot of people who don't go on Twitter, who don't read Twitter. A big portion,
NPCs.
Yeah. I mean, not just NPCs, but a lot of boomers, a lot of older people who still rely on the corporate media that still have a big, significant voter base because they're the ones that actually do care, do vote, do go out there. And I think this is why Nikki Haley is so popular as she is right now, because they have controlled the establishment media narrative, and they're pushing her, promoting her like the next savior and the next, girl, woman boss that is left to be adored by all the betas. And this is why her poll numbers are pretty damn good compared to a lot of other people like Vivek and Ron DeSantis that are now trailing her, which is absolutely bewildering, because when you're in the weeds, you kind of see all this, but when you're not in the weeds, when you're far away, you don't see the kind of inner workings of everything. You don't see the establishment money. You don't see BlackRock and State Street financing and bankrolling her along with all the other military-industrial complex giants that are banking on her becoming the next president of the United States. So with that happening, I think there's going to be definitely some upheaval with Biden. There's definitely going to be some upheaval within the Republican ticket as well. There's other people. There's now a prophet of doom that the Daily Mail is reporting on, saying that he's a psychic that's predicting that in 2024 there's going to be global cyber attacks, natural disasters, and a quote powerful Russian-China alliance. Is this man
This
crazy?
dude's not a prophet. He's just reading the news.
He just watched
He watched
Leave the
that
World
movie.
Behind.
Yeah, he's just Alex Jones 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh no,
dude's
excuse
just
me, a
watching
few years
Netflix.
ago.
Yeah,
Exactly, man. I mean, honestly though, like that is straight from the World Economic Forum. Like that, these are the things that they talk about. They actually have game plans where they talk about this stuff.
I think we should. This guy is not a prophet. He's a grifter, and you know what? I support him. I support you fully. Grift, baby. I love it. Shout out to Hotep Jesus, man. He's the best. So whoever this guy is, share his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, that's not a profound
Assessment.
prophecy at all. I literally just watched Leave the World Behind over the weekend or last weekend, and these things are lined up for you back to back, and then all of a sudden you get that Civil War movie. I mean, the propaganda machine, right? That is Hollywood, that is Netflix. These things are pumping that out regularly.
Lots of predictive programming. Steph,
Right.
you wanted to say something?
I'm just saying, let's give this guy a shot. Look at him. I want to know what he has to say. Wait, do you guys even know who this is? Who's the prophet of doom? Like,
I don't know.
Like, how
That's
can
a
we
good
judge someone
podcast
without
name.
hearing them talk first? Come on.
He's cute. He's cute. Let him let him cook. Come on, go let him cook.
He released that 2-hour video that the Daily Mail is reporting on, but
It took him 2 hours to say that.
It's
I know.
interesting. Why does he get a Daily Mail article and Luke Rukowski does? Because you've been saying this stuff as well. It's just like, they pick this guy. He'll probably play ball or whatever. Why this specific guy that's saying
Because
this
he's
thing?
called the prophet of doom, and that shit sells.
yeah,
That's what
I
that
don't
is.
want that name. I don't want to be the
powerful
prophet.
name.
That's some negative juju there.
Since my show started to blow up a little bit, I've had PR reps that reach out and they go like, we can buy this. We can buy stuff like this. So I honestly think whenever I see stories like that, I'm like, oh, this is just purchased. Like it's
Right.
like it's bought media.
AstroTurf stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's one way of getting your YouTube video seen. And you see the Daily Mail doing a lot of this kind of underhanded advertisement portrayed as kind of news. And a lot of the stuff is also very indicative when they do particular stories about like a travel vlog. And then there's like 20 ad placements of different things that they're selling within that travel vlog to everyone. So the way that we're being sold and advertised to is definitely changing in many different ways. And it wouldn't surprise me if this prophet of doom probably paid for this Daily Mail article. But I think that the subject matter that he's talking about specifically is kind of worth contemplating, since the cyber attacks are something that the World Economic Forum has been drilling for with their cyber polygon war games that they did with the Israeli government, the Russian government. Natural disasters always happen. So when you make a prediction like that, I'm making a prediction. There's going to be a natural disaster in 2024.
I don't know
Clip
where.
this, guys. I don't know where. I don't know who, but I'm making a prediction that's going to be right.
I can go so far as to assure you there will be an earthquake. There will be a volcano exploding.
Yes.
It's like, come on.
Where? Maybe he specifies it. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's actually giving us the coordinates and stuff.
He's saying there's going to be big floods that will engulf London and
Steph has
Europe.
been bought off by the prophet of doom, I think.
Yes. How much did he pay you,
No,
Steph?
it's just that real journalism means actually having to know what we're talking about. Like, I don't know what this guy has said, and how can I judge him without actually knowing?
Well, he's
That's
got
what
a
I
2-hour
do.
video.
This is
so-
my specialty. I read the headline and I'll tell you everything you need to know. Don't worry about it, guys.
with shocking
TopLobster.com.
accuracy.
I
Yeah.
think it's AstroTurf stuff. You're saying that he said that the world will be London will be underwater. So now he's pushing also the climate change. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I mean, I feel like that might be all we need to know about this guy. And
Right.
we could safely move on.
I would
and-
be interested. How did he come across this information? Is this like a prophetic dream? Did he have a vision? I don't know. 2 hours is a little bit steep to watch a guy try to.
I got time for that.
There's a
black
lot of
pill me.
ads that you could put into in a 2-hour
there is, a 2-hour
podcast.
slot, yeah.
Steph, do the button push and click. Clint can handle the setup,
good. You're
the setup
getting
of
distracted
your
all
aggressive
here.
monkey paw. That-
We learned that in training.
I like it. She's excited. I mean, I think we're doing a good job with the
There's
show.
always these prophets, though. Back when I lived in New Jersey, there was a guy named Harold Camping, and he had these giant billboards all around Woodbridge, New Jersey. And the idea was that he boiled the Bible down to a series of like numerical values, and that there was a code hidden within it. And he actually had put on these billboards all around the mall, by the way. So you would be shopping around the holiday season and just black-pilled that this idea, the world was going to end, and he had it down to a date. And he even put the date on the billboards. And then sure enough, you know, the date comes to pass, and I don't know what happened to Harold Camping. He was a little bit long in the tooth. He may have passed away since then, but it was real hard to find him right after the moment. So to the prophet of doom, I hope that you still have something going on in 2025. I hope we all have something going on in 2025.
Hey, Steph, do the button pushing. Come on. Great marketing, though. Let's just be honest here. And he's having us talking about it, which is important here. Now, a lot of people say the flooding of Russia could be related to the Poseidon tsunami weapons that the Russians have. Who knows? Potentially. The Russian-Chinese alliance that he's talking about, it's pretty self-evident with American foreign policy pushing Russia and China closer together, essentially setting up the Thucydides trap that is already unfolding with many proxy wars all over the world between the West and the East. The clash of civilizations is happening, and it's only going to get crazy.
All three of those things happened this year.
Yeah.
So he's taking this year's news and he's saying next year that's going to happen. It's like, okay, great. You're a real prophet.
We kind of glossed over to, like, you're saying there's a Poseidon tsunami weapon.
Remember when weapon manipulations?
The Russians have been bragging, specifically Vladimir Putin has been bragging that he has a weapon that could simulate and carry out a tsunami, and that he has these weapons targeted at the United Kingdom, and that he could use them in order to flood all of the
Honestly,
UK.
I support it because I really don't like but that's neither here nor there.
Hold on. We got to point this out.
Yeah.
You got the god of the ocean, Poseidon,
Yeah.
is his ocean weapon, and the most advanced nuclear weapons they have are called Satan. Two.
Yeah, there's two fallen angels right there for you.
It's in your face, and people will. I know that like half of your audience will be like, these guys are crazy. And like Clint says, I hang out with Clint all the time. He's like, I like him, but he's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can think that anymore. It's
Right.
like directly in your face.
The crazy people have been proven right way too much.
Look at the jar. Look at the jar.
The jar
It is
full.
overflowing.
It's full.
But I don't think you're crazy. It's just that the confidence with which you talk about this stuff is like, that's where I go, all right, this dude's crazy.
Michael Malice has said any claim preceding the term "but" can be disregarded. So I don't think you're crazy, but.
Right, there you go. He hits us with the butt.
All right, let's get into our main topic of discussion, and that, of course, is Tucker Carlson and aliens or interdimensional beings or Nephilim, whatever you might call them. As, of course, there was a clip that went pretty viral. It's 3 minutes long. I think it would be worth listening to as much of it as we can, since it kind of set me asking Tucker Carlson this question directly about what he actually meant for this. We also have that video clip as well. So let's just get into it. This is Tucker Carlson a few days ago talking about the larger spiritual components, which he said he doesn't fully understand. If you guys have anything to say during these 3 minutes, feel free to interrupt and we could stop the clip.
The second thing that bothers me is the UFO story. And you know, the more you dig into that and talk to people with actual knowledge of it, again, that's another story where there are some, fanciful ideas floating around that are just, there's no evidence that they're true. But if you talk to people who, have actual knowledge of it that they gathered themselves, there are parts of that story that I do not understand at all that are really, really, really dark. It's so dark that I, haven't told my wife about it. I mean, I haven't verified any of this, but this is not just stuff that I read on the internet. I know you all are very, very grounded in that story, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's some stuff there that's just like, man, I'm not even sure what that means. There's a spiritual component there that I don't fully understand. So yes, that story bothers me. And
okay, can we pause that?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I got to say right off the bat is I don't think that Tucker is unknowledgeable about these things. He's playing conservative for a number of reasons, I'm sure. You could speculate as to why that's happening.
One of the reasons is his audience is this like Fox News audience still that he's drawn over. So you have to like baby feed them. So I understand. I'm a little aggravated with Tucker because like, tell us what you know, give us the gravy. But I understand.
but there's also a lot of plausible deniability, especially in the kind of interdimensional spirit world, which is left to a lot of interpretation. And I think the kind of journalistic side of his it might be authentic because it doesn't look like he's having a scripted moment here. It doesn't look like he's talking from lines that he's given. It looks like he's talking from the heart and just genuinely kind of trying to describe something that's out of this world or out of this world's realm that we are currently privy to that other entities might not be privy to.
But what is he hinting at?
His word. I'm saying that his words are measured. He's very smart, and this is what he does for a living.
And you're right. He can't ostracize his fan base
No.
all of a sudden like that, all in one moment, right? If he would have just pulled the blanket off. But look, as far as you were saying, when people speak confidently, you go, "This guy's full of shit," and that's a very reasonable thing to do. But
Only when it's confidence about something that's not really provable. That's the issue.
right, when it's not really provable. So all you could do is you can kind of collect this anecdotal evidence and you look for patterns from one experience to the next. And one of the things that we certainly have a lot of is anecdotal experiences from people who are abductee victims, right? Which is something that a few years ago you wouldn't have talked about seriously. Obviously, the window has shifted significantly where we're having these conversations regularly now on the world stage. So one of the things that is a very common thread, unfortunately, and look, there are scary aspects about it, right? You're talking about alien abductions. You're talking about cattle mutilations, experimentations done on human beings, the unwilling kidnapping, essentially, of these victims, if we're to believe what they're saying. Let's go into that realm.
And probings in the, you know what?
That's right.
That's the fun stuff.
No, that's the good time.
Right,
yeah.
right, Clint?
Yeah, just like in college, it was fun.
That's right, you Nephilim. So one of the things that I would say is the most nefarious is this hybridization between our species and their species. And you'll come across this a lot
Like
in
a
these
Gavin
experiences.
Newsom.
Like a Gavin Newsom.
Wait, is that what I am? Is that a Nephilim? Is that a hybrid?
Well,
Possibly.
Maybe,
They don't
It's
all know
probably.
what they are, but we're telling you.
Well,
Okay.
so in the 90s, it started off as this black-eyed children thing. So people would have these experiences where they were abducted. They go through regressive hypnosis. Say what you want about regressive hypnosis. It's a potentially faulty exercise, but people would remember their experiences. They would see these children. They would have this feeling that these children were their own. Now, in the 90s, these children that they would describe, they all fit the same bill. Kind of stringy hair, weird skin. They were kind of really off-putting and scary. Early 2000s, that changes. Now the people are having the same experience, but the children are much more integrated. They look more human-esque. Still not all the way there. Still big black eyes, but like not super gross. But still this feeling that they're their children. And we're talking about people that are experiencing pregnancies through abductions, getting ultrasounds, having children apparently present, and then all of a sudden one day they wake up, the baby is gone. There's no signs of them ever having been pregnant at all. This is something that you can find repeated instances of. And now these instances, they're still happening, but the children look much more like us. So I would say that's a good place to start, is why is there this concerted effort? If we're to believe what they're saying, take it at face value. Let's entertain it for a second. There's a hybridization program between our species and theirs, right? And so
What is the nefarious thing that's happening that he's talking about? Well, next week we actually have L.A. Marzulli coming on our show, which is going to be incredible because he's done a number of documentaries from the Nephilim to UFOs and aliens and stuff like this. And his latest thing is cattle mutilation, alien
and the
abduction,
hybridization.
the hybridization program. And he's pretty convinced that this is what's going on. It's very possible. Clint, I see you looking at me like
Well,
that.
I just want to know why. Why would they be doing that?
Okay, but this is probably for the Rumble. But let's just touch it for a second,
All
right?
right.
This idea that a long time ago, there was a third of the angels that rebelled against God. They were cast out of heaven. They landed on Mount Hermon. And when they got here, they decided that our women look good and that they should mate with them. And they gave birth to you, the Nephilim.
The Nephilim.
There has always been an effort to alter the genealogy of God's creation.
Yeah,
This has been the name of the game since the jump. And now, all of a sudden, here we are faced with this extraterrestrial, supernatural entity that is doing the same thing. And we're going, oh, this is different. These are aliens.
And,
The Bible-
hey, the women do look good here.
They do look good.
I'll leave it at that.
The best women.
But hold
Especially in
on,
Miami.
let's play a little bit more of this clip because I think it's
Yeah.
important for the context here, Steph.
thing I'll say that one of the reasons that we've had all these disclosures and all these 10 whistleblowers at this point, and it hasn't really become front page news. Part of it's suppression. Parts of the government don't want you to know about it, but part of it is the public can't deal with it. It's too far out. The implications are too profound. And I understand that. Because I've heard things where I'm just like, oh man, I don't even really want to know that, honestly.
Deeply disturbing stuff. Forget like saucers and technology. It's deeply disturbing stuff that I haven't even told Natalie. Yep. I agree with you. It's so disturbing. Exactly. I can't even tell my kids. My kids ask me different stories about it, and I won't say it because it's so dark.
I have a feeling that that's what they were talking about, Luke.
Yeah. What do you think is the dark secret?
I think. This is kind of old. I forget this guy's name. Spanish guy like Gonzalez, but he theorizes that our government has some kind of accord with whatever interdimensional aliens or demons, whatever you like to call them, where they're allowing this to happen. So it's almost like an allowed abduction for their experimentation to create and do whatever in exchange for maybe a Poseidon weapon or whatever kind of technology that's been going on. I mean, the things that we're on right now, how we're talking to these people is a modern miracle. 20 years ago, how many people are watching now? Quite a few. And 20 years ago, if you would have said, yeah, we're going to just sit in Luke's house and talk to this many people live through the air.
It would have been magic.
It would have been magic. It would have been insane. But we're dealing with this Nephilim technology right now. So that's kind of the theory that I would subscribe to.
I think you're right, though. I think that there's always been, it doesn't matter. Remove the terminology aliens and just deal with supernatural beings. And you can talk demigods, you can talk spirits, whatever. There has always been you sacrifice to us. It's a quid pro quo. You sacrifice to us. We give you an advancement of some sort. Back in the day, it was in the sense of agriculture. You've got good rains coming. Your crop yield is going to be super dope.
Woman eye magic, That's
sacrifice your children at the top of the pyramid, and you will get good weather.
And so
now we have Al Gore saying, sacrifice your children, and you'll have good weather.
It's the same thing. It's just now the prize is a little bit different. It's in the shape of technology, I would assume. A lot of people think that the Roswell crash wasn't as much of a crash as it was sort of, here, take this. They threw us a bone, for whatever reason. But there's always been this, you give to us, we give to you. And it's always been, give us your people, give us your children. And I think that when it comes to this really dark aspect, Top really touched on it there. There's a likelihood that we're trading people for information. We're trading people for technology. We're trading people for protection and advantage of some sort, but we're trading people.
Could be why they're doing, child sacrifices, Bohemian Grove, but to certain entities. That's a probability. We got some super chats here that I wanted to read.
Oh, boy.
One from I'm Not Your Buddy guy saying the dark secret is Clint sniffs glue. I'm Not Your Buddy guy. Great super chat. Thank you. Tim Crespi says, these aren't angels. They're ancient primates that were mostly wiped out. It's why we can interbreed with them. They're the only one with bigger brains. That's a super chat by Tim Cripsey. We're going to have to go over to Rumble soon, but before we do, let's play the rest of this clip, as of course we have the clip of me talking to Tucker Carlson as well that I think is worth listening to, since I asked him a follow-up question to this statement that he made during this video. So let's play it.
So dark.
I totally agree.
Miles is watching. So.
Okay, Miles, if you're watching the show, Daddy's not going to tell you about that part of the UFO stuff and what's going on with the government.
Well,
can
I say one thing? They've known clearly, this is, I think, established, and I feel comfortable saying this as fact. The U.S. government, these are real, whatever they are. They're not human. And the government has known that for a long time, possibly going back to the 1930s at least. And, of course, there's tons of evidence in the written record, in the physical record, in paintings, and in literature, that people have been seeing and interacting with these things for a long time. So we know that. But the justification one often hears is, well, the government, various presidents who have been read in, not all have been, haven't wanted to disclose this because it would scare people. And I've always thought that's bullshit. You're hiding a crime, which they are, by the way, in my opinion. But I do think there's a sense in which that's not totally crazy. Like, there is some stuff, if it's true, and I'm kind of thinking it may be true, that's so radical that yeah, well, as we both said, we don't want to tell the people we love most about it, because, like, why would you disturb someone like that. So I kind of get that. I hate to admit it. I'm not arguing for hiding things. I believe in the truth and I believe in disclosure, but I understand the impulse, like, holy smokes, this is heavy. You know what I mean?
And the government's involvement in it makes it even heavier, because then you realize the complicity
exactly.
of it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the same thing. I can tell. Okay.
Yeah,
excuse me.
Should I go?
No. This is what we used to talk about in commercial breaks all the time. This is the kind of stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, so at the time, I never would have believed any of that. But now I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Very good points by Tucker Carlson, as of course, it's fair to assume the government is involved here. How are they involved is the question that I think a lot of people are kind of asking themselves, since there are many kind of very weird government experiments and tests that they have been doing through many decades that have been publicly disclosed that do go into the kind of woo-woo aspect of a lot of hippy-dippy stuff that usually would be seen as crazy, but the U.S. government actually tests it in order to probably weaponize it. And this is just some of the stuff. I'm talking about the men who stare at goat stuff. I'm talking about MK Ultra stuff. I'm talking about literal American scientists working on teleporting through walls. That's the type of stuff that the U.S. Pentagon takes their tax dollars and tries to literally figure out, as well as communicating without actually communicating. Lots of weird stuff that the U.S. government does that we know about. A lot of weirder stuff that we don't know about yet. What do you guys think the role of the government is here when it comes to these interdimensional demons, angels, Nephilims, UFOs, however you may call them?
Well, I mean, let's start at the not the beginning, but let's start in like the 1940s, right? So the Nazis won World War II, and whatever they were doing in Antarctica and whatever kind of deals they're making in I mean, everyone's seen the pictures of the UFOs, right, and stuff like that they were working on, the occult practices of them. They won. They were transferred into the United States in the form of Project Paperclip, Operation Paperclip, and now they're here doing the same thing.
Making NASA, nonetheless.
Making NASA. Like, the first thing they did, make NASA, like, do this, do that. It's a bit, like, demoralizing in a sense, because...
Yeah, the Germans also had flying saucers. Maybe people don't realize, a lot of advanced tech that it was also very eye-opening. We're going to have to go to Rumble really quickly. Just, do you want to finish off the last few statements that you had there, and then we'll fully go off to the free speech platform where we get to kind of say and do what we want?
I've got one. Do you mind if I
do it? Yeah, because I was going to say let's save it for
Well, let's
Rumble.
keep this really simple, right? When it comes to the moment that Tucker just had, where we turned to him and he said, okay, we're talking about the same thing. It's because he was talking about the complicity of the government in all of this. And if you plug in the context that we just talked about, where they're trading human beings for whatever advancement, call it technological, call it information, doesn't matter, then that makes a lot of sense. That moment that Tucker has where he goes, the complicity of the government, oh, we're talking about the same thing. Think through that context, and that clip actually makes a lot of sense.
The question is just how deep does he go down that rabbit hole? And I think in the second hour we could just go a little bit deeper than what I think he's referring to.
Yeah, let's go there and many other places on rumble.com/wearechange. Rumble.com/wearechange is the place to be, as of course we are now officially going to be ending the YouTube portion of this broadcast, as it's more imperative than ever that you guys vote with your clicks, vote with your attention. Trust me, I've been trying to save a lot of the very more spicy aspects of this conversation for Rumble. And once we are on Rumble, there's kind of a full release, a full detox, a full just...
We're going to explode.
Train of consciousness that some people would even describe as conjuring itself, all on rumble.com/wearechange. It's more important than ever that we stop participating in larger technocratic gulags and go over to safer spaces and mansions of individuals just being able to fully express themselves without any kind of restraint or censorship. So I can't tell you guys enough how important it is. the spicy aspect of this conversation. We're going to get into a lot of different stuff, especially with me talking to Tucker, the private conversations I had with him. There's also a lot of other stuff that we cannot talk about, specifically when it comes to even South Park. I watched their special last night, and there was a shocking thing with minors. I'll get into that, plus a lot more, all on rumble.com/wearechange, rumble.com/wearechange. Go over there right now. Before we do, where can people find you guys, Top Lobster and Raven, before we end this YouTube broadcast?
Yes, go to, for me, Top Lobster. That's TOPLOBSTA. I'm on Twitter. That's where you can find me. I have a website where I do sell merch, but I'm not trying to compete with Luke.
You can mention it. It's fine.
TopLobster.com.
Free market competition is where it's at.
That's right.
That's right. We're partners in the battle together. Yeah, except I'm doing like really, the stuff's crazy. Yeah, that's where you can find me. And Tower Gang on Wednesdays, please show up. I don't care if you don't like that stuff. Show up, call us names, check it out. It's an experience. It's a Tower Gang experience. You really have to be there live, 9-11 p.m. to understand what this is. It's a cultural event.
People will watch us for like an hour before they
what is this?
Before they even have any inkling of what we're actually going for.
Yeah.
But then people that actually stick it out become lifelong fans. So
Yeah.
David Lee Corbo, aka The Raven. You can find me on The Ravens Watch on YouTube, on Rumble. You can follow me on Twitter at David_Lee_Corbo. I really messed that one up. It's too long. And then don't forget to go to toplobster.com, get some NDS merch.
Can we say
the name? I don't know.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
in
Stick around. We'll
about
figure it
60
out.
seconds.
60 seconds.
Actually, sorry. Yeah, let me just say this. So at toplobster.com, if you do buy NDS merch, we're actually partnered with Matthew Rife, not the comedian. He's for Real Rife Technology, the Rife machine. It's like a frequency healing machine. We're giving away, it's a $5,500 Royal Rife machine. The thing is incredible. I have it in my house, and you can tune it to all kinds of frequencies depending on your ailments. But it's just a raffle. So if you buy one of our shirts, your name gets entered in a raffle. At the end of January, we're giving this thing away. So shameless plug, go check that out.
Very cool. At Liberty Lock Pod on X, Clint Russell's the name. Liberty Lockdown. I just broke down Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson's discussion about free market capitalism, framing it as libertarianism. I then woke up this morning and saw that Dave Smith had done the exact same thing. So check mine out, though. It's even better than Dave's. Liberty Lockdown. Tower Gang on Wednesdays. We'll see you there. Steph,
we are change.
Oh, come on, Steph.
I don't know. Dave does a good job. I don't know if I'm going to believe that one.
Well,
there.
you can listen to both and decide for yourself, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyway, go over right now. Seriously,
We're going deep.
Just a little.
It's about to get crazy. It's about to get weird.
Yeah. Well, that's usually what we do here anyway. But seriously, it does mean a lot when you guys go over to free speech platforms. Supporting them now is more important than ever. I hope you guys appreciated the limited kind of hangout and the